Hello, this is Tam the Tam BOTC channel, and we're going to be looking at a video actually, and I want to tell you guys I will be doing a Evil Within 2 review when I can. I've seen a fair chunk of it, like 7 hours so far, so I can't really give a review yet until completed, but I am fairly impressed. Though in some aspects with this response video I'm going to do, and it's nothing harmful. It's not going to be rude to the person or anything. I just thought it was kind of like weird in some cases that it's a thing, but I came across this guy here, MarkRFC, if you see the title of the video, of course, doing a review for Evil Within 2, and though most of the video I found really good, and even though, like, I felt, actually, like, so far I don't feel like I'm as scared of Evil Within 2. It didn't make me really that frightened. A lot of the scares in something like Resident Evil 7, anyways, were more kind of like how Alien Isolation does it, where it's more of the in-game experience that goes on, that goes into a scare, instead of feeling like it's supposed to be driven that way. It feels less so like it feels more like it's part of the game, actually, than it does a kind of like scripted experience. And I want to bring out points because I felt like it just felt out of place and kind of odd, just the way he brought up Resident Evil for his points, because he didn't really say much to bring out why, and maybe you could do a separate video or comments to really say on that. But for the big chunk of his video, it is really good. I don't know if it would get the rating that he gave it, but go check out his video. But yeah, it's not bad, and the game actually kind of surprises me. But I don't know, I didn't even find the weird stuff of the game really all that creepy. Like, I never got the whole hairs standing up on end, or just goosebumps or anything like that. No. But I did feel it did a good job with what it had. But let me show you a few of the points. First off, he goes into this first part.
Hey.
Sebastian. I did feel like some of the writing was a little bizarre, as well as some of the mouth movement while you're talking to other characters, and like one of those conversational scenes is kind of odd.
Get me out of here.
So here he
Detective
says,
Castellanos. What a
take
pleasant
some lessons,
surprise.
Capcom,
Welcome back.
and doesn't
Pay
expand
attention,
on why.
Capcom. This is how you do true survival horror. Now, Resident Evil 7 was okay, but the game was more empty than a junkie's needle. In my opinion, The Evil Within is way ahead of Resident Evil at the moment, because after this game, I realised that Tango Gameworks are willing to take more risks, rather than just playing it safe. Looking at you.
And I don't like that he keeps doing that. Looking at you. It's kind of annoying, and he does it more than once. But he doesn't elaborate. I guess that's what the rest of the video of going into the review itself is supposed to be. But, and he doesn't necessarily need to connect it to Resident Evil 7, but in order to drive his point home on why, I think he does have to go a little bit in depth there, even if it's really brief, because it really doesn't go anywhere, and it's I kinda don't agree with it myself. That's just my opinion, but there's also fair criticism to some stuff. Now, I admit Resident Evil 7 definitely isn't the best game, and it's more like an 8 out of 10 rating, but I did feel like the horror was really good. And though I feel like there is more variety and such in Evil Within 2, it's Evil Within 2 still has that problem. I'll bring it up in my review, but I do want to say it still has the problem of like an identity crisis, where it's like at one point it feels like it's trying too hard to be Resident Evil, at another it's trying too hard to be Silent Hill. but it doesn't know what makes both those games, especially since it's so weird to put both those games into one, that its own little sprinkles of evil within magic, whatever you want to call it, evil within goodness, don't really translate all that well. I definitely think it's better than the first game, but um, yeah, I don't know what to say. I don't know what to say. Like, maybe more elaborate a little bit more, even if you don't have to go super in depth. And I don't mean to pick on this video, but I did find it a little like okay, especially with the rating he gave it. Almost like was like reliving IGN's review of the first Evil Within, and he quotes at the end that and it possibly hints to him liking the first game, and I'm like, that game's very flawed, so this probably tells me why you think this game's really good. So I don't know. Not that it's a bad game. Evil Within 2 does surprise me once again, and I wanted to be surprised because Evil Within 1 was such trash, and I gave many reasons. There's also that thing, like, I was looking at Nitro Rad's review, and he brought out the whole the burning bodies thing, and why that's a good concept, where I brought out in my video that it's bad and stupid, so it's kind of hard to review things nowadays when somebody's going to give that thing you thought bad a good point to it, and then the other person's like going to give that thing a bad point that you would give a good point to it. So it's just like, how do I go about this? I still think it's bad because it's like, you're getting ammo which lowers the survival horror factor of it out of dead bodies. Not all of them, of course, but you still get stuff most of the time. And second, there's no point to it, because in Resident Evil they made a point to it because the bodies would get up and become Crimson Heads later, where they don't get up at all in Evil Within. They just stay down for good. Matter of fact, you don't even come back to that. And I feel like Evil Within's just doing that thing where it's like, if you're a newcomer, it's going to feel like it's just being weird for the sake of being weird. And there's, like, not that it needs context to what it's doing, but I feel like going into a game like this, you kind of need that, and especially after, if you did go through the first game, you're just going to be like, what? What's going on? This game's easier to follow and understand, of course. I might as well be doing a review here, but I won't. I want my review to come out better. But yeah, I feel like the creepy build-up was definitely good, and I'm glad it did this, but that doesn't mean Resident Evil as well is necessarily done with third-person horror. I don't think they are. Like, later down the lines, they're definitely doing this new trend, but I think they will eventually come back to third person, or at least make like a spin-off game that's third person. So yeah, I don't think they're done with that. So what else? I kind of like didn't get, like, he said this is how you do true survival horror, and like the wrong kind of I think he's talking about the entirety of what his review is going to be, of course, but like the wrong kind of footage to show to bring up your point with the rip-off Silent Hill nurse. And he said that Resident Evil 7 felt very empty. I agree and disagree. He'd have to go into why. I do agree that it is empty in big parts, but I feel like that's kind of how it's supposed to be. Is the isolation and loneliness vibe that you get. And the game can be just as unpredictable. Like, a matter of fact, when I played Madhouse difficulty, not only were the survival tactics raised, but the unpredictability of the enemies were raised too, as well as the save point stakes and such. And I had more fun in Madhouse than I did the normal difficulty, actually. I really loved it. And here's what I wanted to bring out, and it's just the ending of his video. There's really nothing else in between here. It really is just the beginning and end. Speaking of which, this part here that you see reminds me of the dinner scene used in Resident Evil 7. So I wonder if they were capitalizing on that. And the town area feels kind of like Silent Hill with the no roads thing, and it being disconnected from the rest of the world. The weird Japanese monsters, of course, like I mean, they're cool, but I wouldn't say they're a unique or amazingly new thing. I mean, nothing is really new nowadays when it comes to it, how we approach different things. But the final thing, and he brings up again, it takes more risks and such. I don't know. I think it's taking about the same risks it did originally. I don't think it's taking new risks. I think it's just all the same risks that it's taking. That's also another thing that would have to be elaborated on. Like, this would all have to be, where is it? I can't find it.
And make the scales more
Let's see.
subtle with its atmosphere and style deserves extra credit for it.
See.
It's all about the build up, not just the payoff, and I love it for that. The Evil Within 2 is a survival horror fan's wet dream. This right here is how you do survival horror properly, without copying other people's ideas. Yeah.
That's where I'm confused, is that doesn't make sense to me. First off, yes, Shinji Mikami, but we shouldn't give Shinji Mikami all the credit, kind of like we do publishers like EA and Activision. They're evil, yes, but they kind of just like a bigger business that puts in these nasty business practices into the games. The developers are a major point to how the game actually comes out. Destiny 2, for example. But to say that this is copying another's idea and then to do that whole looking at you again, which is just annoying to me. And I love it. I do love his accent once again. Guessing he's Scottish or Irish. I don't want to mess that up. I'm sorry. Yeah. I like this review. It was good. I don't know if I would give it a 9 out of 10 like you saw he gave. It would probably be an I'm not gonna say actually, because then what's the point of my review? But yeah, I mean, I'm kind of judging it now, but I kind of have to go into elaborate and kind of go in depth there too, in order to make sure that I know what I'm talking about there. But yeah, a lot of it's just like maybe more in depth, either a separate video or something else, and I don't think he has to, or just a comment. But yeah, I really enjoyed his video, but copying, you also have to think like there were other people who worked on the original Resident Evils, and this is kind of what the fans wanted, or they thought the fans wanted, was the return to formula. And this is Resident Evil, so they have the rights to reuse what happened before, so there's no reason for even saying that, to be honest. So, and plus, Resident Evil 7 did come out before Evil Within 2, so way before Evil Within 2. And it's surprising how fast that came out. I don't know how long that was in development. It feels like it was a long time, that it should have been a long time, but from when it was originally announced, it felt like it was a rushed game. But then you played it and you're like surprised that it's not a rushed game. It's got a very interesting story. I really found a lot of the characters interesting. The only two characters I had a problem with was Ethan and Zoe. I didn't really find as many characters to say that for in Evil Within 2, other than Sebastian this time around, and what's her face, Kidman. Never found any of the characters memorable, but the Baker family I found singing memorable as crud, and I love the boss battles. Like, they were over the top but awesome and really different. But that's what I have to say is like I don't think it's exactly copying when it is their rights, and we shouldn't give one man so much credit, especially since I don't think he's the director or writer behind this one, but he does have some influence as I think a executive producer over the second game, and it kind of shows that they kind of needed a different writer or director too, because if Shinji Mikami was back in the lead, he's not really good at doing his cinematics and such, and his writing isn't superb. like, even though I agree Resident Evil 4 is a great game, but I felt like there were moments in the cutscenes and such that were like, okay, that's really dumb. That's over the top. That's over dramatic. That kind of stuff. But I wouldn't say like what and where. I would have to elaborate on that. No. But yeah, I feel like maybe more elaboration, or not even bring it up. Just bring it up as a small point for your review, and that's it. But to say it's copying and such is just like, no. Because, once again, like the thing I talked about where, like, you could counter-react that argument, like there's somebody who loves the, it gives a point to why the matches thing was a good thing in Evil Within, like Nitro Rad, to my point on why it isn't a good thing and is pointless, which I haven't seen. I really don't think there's a whole matches thing in the second Evil Within. Once again, have to go through more of the game, but only gone 7 hours, whatever. But yeah, it's got interesting bosses. I've seen like 2 bosses so far. I wouldn't count the chase scene with the first boss. Um, but yeah, it did feel like some things are scripted. I realize I think that the monster won't break into that room. That you have to climb up the ladder into the vent unless you climb up the ladder, so you have to activate that event to happen. So I don't think there's any real danger there. So things like that still feel kind of scripted, and I think it's still got an identity crisis, and it's just like some parts could be taken as it's just trying to be weird for the sake of being weird. And it's got your zombies and such that just feel kind of stereotypical or nothing new. Stereotyped zombies, yeah! I don't know how that would be a thing, but yeah, I did find there were good things about the Evil Within too, but I don't know what to say. It's definitely seems like it's longer than Resident Evil 7, but I don't know if I would say it's better. That's a hard one to say, but yeah. And the points that he did bring out didn't really support why it would be better than something like Evil Within. And the site it's empty, maybe once you clear out all the enemies, yeah. And I did feel like once you got to the son, Lucas Baker, it did start feeling more empty. But even then, I feel like things started changing up and they threw more enemies at you. So I can't really say it was empty, and I think it was empty on purpose for a reason. So I feel like it was in their favor. It worked in their favor. The loneliness, claustrophobic vibe, and just all around isolation from the rest of the world kind of vibe that it gives you. So I don't know what else to say there. uh, but yeah, tell me guys in the comments below what you think. Do you think this guy? What do you think of this guy's channel? And you know what? I'm going to be nice to this guy because I don't want to. I don't want to look like I complained about a video for just the sake of complaining about it now. But I'm going to subscribe to him. There you go. You got yourself an extra subscriber. Keep up the great work. He looks like he has some other interesting videos going on here. I'm probably going to watch some of his other stuff. But he does seem really good. He's really good with knowing what he wants to say and how he's going to deliver it. But I would say leave out Resident Evil 7 from your Evil Within 2 review unless you actually use it for a solid point that contributes to your reasoning behind what Evil Within goes on that makes it better in those respects. But besides that, I have nothing else to say. That was all I had to say about his review. It's not a bad review. Go watch it. It's definitely done better than what I would make. It's definitely better. He's got more subscribers than me, and now I've added to him. And he seems like a fantastic guy. So go check out his channel, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to my channel as well. And I will see you guys next time. I didn't want to feel rude or like I was butting in, but I did feel like the reason I'm bringing this up is I feel like more people or reviewers will be trying to compare this to Resident Evil 7, and I kind of want to bring it out that kind of want to be careful there when it comes to that, because there are some things you probably will be right about, but other things you can't really go about saying and be 100% correct on it, such as the copying thing. I'm not going to say that they don't copy, but it is their licensed property, and they have the rights to go back to formula, especially if people wanted that in the first place. And especially since this Resident Evil 7 was actually a really helping hand in the Resident Evil franchise. I think it would have died otherwise, or just even more like, whoops, stupid headset. It would have just been worse otherwise. So I'll see you guys next time. That was all I had to say about that. I had to look. I had to look him up, of course, when I watched his review originally, because oh, he does Bounty Hunter. Cool. I own that game. But yeah, definitely great reviewer, and I don't know why I'm still talking. Just be careful when you go about reviewing certain things, like what should be critiqued, what shouldn't, whatever. Because you could turn out to have a problem or a dead end that you're running into. I don't know what to say about that copying part, because I really don't think that Resident Evil 7 is copying. Like, once again, that would have to be elaborated on why. It's their property, they own it, and I think they kind of needed it anyway. Especially since it came out before something like The Evil Within 2, and I think it was in development possibly longer than The Evil Within 2. And the guy likes Evil Within 1, so yeah, that's his opinion, of course, but there's a lot of things to critique about that game that they have major problems with. It makes it just super sloppy. I felt like the first Evil Within had an even worse identity crisis though than Evil Within 2. Like at least they toned down the identity crisis of the second one, where the first game had a major problem with that. It felt like it chopped up a bunch of other games and threw it in, and it didn't know what made games like Resident Evil and Silent Hill good or work the way they did. Like, you could go into Silent Hill and be like, this world is weird, and it's messing with me, but it was like in a good way, and it had some context to it, especially when it opened up more towards the end of the game, where Evil Within didn't really do that much. It still remained confusing. So, yeah. I just felt like a lot of the stuff was being weird for the sake of being weird and trying to mess with you.